While others celebrate the wins,
Yes.
We celebrate the mud.
each episode has a special guest.
Tony-nominated actress, Broadway's Lily Cooper.
Tashir Zameda.
David A. Gregory.
Getting messy with muddy topics.
We are going to be talking about grief journey.
With hilarious moments
Now get over here.
And deep conversations.
I'm ashamed to even admit this, but this is what happened.
This is Into the Mud.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Into the Mud podcast.
I'm Alex Cumin.
And I'm Drew King. While others celebrate the wins,
We celebrate the mud.
we celebrate the mud. And today we are doing our first, I guess, our second, but this is our first full dedicated episode of Just
Drew and Alex.
Drew and Alex.
No guess. We're going to
So,
get muddy with each other.
Yeah, we're going to sprinkle these throughout all of our guest episodes, and we're here having some coffee
A little
talk,
coffee talk.
having a little bit of coffee, and we're going to talk about some muddy things today that Alex and I are actively in this very moment feeling, which is fucking compare, despair, comparison wars, comparison monster.
Yes.
That's what we're going to dig into today.
We're digging into it, and it's... okay, so I think...
Where are you at?
Where am I at?
How do you, let's say define comparison to me.
Define comparison.
And what does it look like in your life?
For me, comparison looks like, and I have noticed it flaring especially hard the deeper that I get into social media, which totally makes sense. But that the landscape for comedy, the landscape for everything really has shifted. So the markers for success in my field have changed since I started in the last decade. And now a lot of the success markers are how many followers do you have? It's how you get booked at clubs. Are you able to sell tickets? What is your TikTok, Instagram? What's your YouTube? It has become your calling card. And how much are you posting? And what kinds of stuff are you posting?
Yeah.
And do you get engagement on posts? And looking at people who have been doing this for less time than I have, or who are younger and have much larger followings, and what that makes me feel like my worth is, and what it makes me feel like all the years of work, of hard work that I've put in, gets really boiled down to yeah, but do you have the numbers? And
Exactly, without having that, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Without having that achievement or that brand of success.
Right.
You know, that you have this many followers and now you're a success.
Right.
You feel like nothing and feel like shit, which is ew, I hate social media and I hate that we're even talking about this.
I hate that we're talking about it.
It's
and
so valid.
Yeah. And just looking, I have a particular thing with, I feel like I haven't achieved what I'm supposed to by my age.
How old are you?
I'm 36. I'll be 37 in a couple weeks. And and I can mentally wrap my head around all of the concepts of everyone's road is different.
Everyone has a different path.
Everyone has a different path. Comparison is a thief of joy. I could rattle off the whole textbook on this.
Yep.
The emotional understanding is where I fall short, and the really grasping it as a person. So.
Yeah, you can logic it, but you can't feel it. You're feeling whatever you're going to feel, but it's hard to reconcile the difference between the brain and the heart.
Yeah.
And you're right. Yeah, you can give yourself all the fucking motivational quotes you want about not comparing yourself, but inside you're like, but why do they have that and I don't?
But why do they have that and I don't? Or how come they can figure that out and I can't? That's where I feel I have been struggling deeply with the speed and quantity of turning over material and writing new things and producing solo shows and writing scripts and things like that. I really struggle with it, and I feel like I'm missing a piece of creativity that other people have seemed to have found or tapped into. So that's where I'm at right now with it. Where are you at with it?
I feel it in so many areas. It was just Pride weekend this past weekend. So I do feel it a lot in regards to what does it mean for me to be a gay man, and especially a gay man who's pushing 40, who's single, who is a freelancer and still is a cater waiter. I have a lot of these comparison mind games that really fuck with me. And especially they get blown up a lot during Pride. Because it's looking at every other homosexual that's oh, they have this many followers and they have this body and they have had that job and they own that house on Fire Island and they're going to Sea Chase on vacation for the 17th time. And there's such a, like, there's this, a massive complex about elitism and exceptionalism in the gay community.
Where do you think that comes from?
Oh, so many places. Like we mentioned earlier, it comes from that space of overcompensating. Gay men in general. Again, this is a generalization, but B, I'm also specifically talking about, like, I don't know, like cisgendered gay men in New York City.
Right.
Like, they're a different breed.
Right.
And a lot of it comes from youth trauma.
Yeah.
I think, like, in some capacity, we have all been othered, and we have had to navigate the world as a child, actually not understanding that we're different, but we don't know how. You have little hints here and there, but the world knows you're different, and you know you're different, but nobody can kind of pinpoint it yet. And so you kind of fabricate this different version of yourself while constantly comparing yourself and trying to draw from other people, being like, oh, well, they play sports, and that means they're masculine, and that means people like them, and they're popular, so I should like sports, even though I fucking hate sports.
Right.
Or, you know, these people have money, and so because they have money, they have nice clothes, and the kids in school like them.
Or if I don't talk about this side of myself, it seems that people react really positively to me. Yes. So this must be a darker side that I shouldn't talk about or I should be ashamed of, so we're just going to tuck that away.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time that you felt othered or you felt that difference? Do you remember, like,
as a gay man or as, like, in the comparison game, or both?
Both. Anything that comes
kind of
to
similar.
mind?
Many times. I mean, I always felt uncomfortable in my skin playing soccer. Like, my dad, you know, very lovingly threw me into a bunch of sports.
Yeah.
Because he loves sports and my siblings love sports. It's just what we did. And, you know, Massachusetts,
It's
very like
especially
soccer.
Like
the Red Sox and the Bruins, blah, 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 go. It's just everywhere. So I remembered feeling like meek and thin and shy and like skinny little boy who just wanted to like pick the flowers in the field. But here I was like trying to play sports and I didn't feel like I belonged there. And I think even my, like, you know, the coaches could tell that I didn't belong there because I didn't want to be there.
Right.
And my peers knew that I didn't want to be there because I was bad at it. But really below that was like a bit of my queerness. Me being like, oh, I don't connect with this like hyper masculine thing that all of my straight or seemingly straight cisgendered peers are really focused on and loving.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, but I'd rather listen to like pop music and do art, you know, go painting and pick flowers or do other little, I don't know, things that were a little bit more introverted and sensitive.
Yeah.
So I think those were probably the first times that I noticed it. What about you?
Yeah. I think, and we'll probably tackle this on a later episode, but just with my particular brand of childhood trauma that, again, we'll get into another time. It was feeling like I had to hide this thing that happened and really being so embarrassed about it and being so scared that if people found out that I would be like completely rejected. And so I felt like I had to hide a very significant thing and a thing that I was dealing with, kind of a deep trauma that I was dealing with pretty heavily for a number of years. And really it was that like, it's the animalistic herd mentality of like, you will exile me and I will be alone and have to fend for myself. I will not be a part of the group. I will not be.
That was me as a queer boy. That was had the same thoughts.
Like, that's what it is. It's like, if you find this thing out, I'm going to be pushed out of the village. And so it was very much like, I remember being in like elementary school and being like, oh, you can't talk about this with anyone. So just, that's 100% where I developed my sense of humor. Was like, this is a fun shield. Yeah. This is a fun way for me to control exactly how much attention comes my way and then deflect it somewhere else if it's not the kind of attention I want. And it was really interesting. I had this really interesting conversation with my therapist last week about where the comparison comes from and how deeply rooted it is in like shame or childhood trauma, where you learn that you have to pay attention to social cues and social standing. And so you become hyper fixated on all that stuff as a safety measure, as a protective
Survival.
measure.
It's a survival
It's
tactic.
a full survival tactic, which worked very well when I needed it. But I don't need that survival tactic anymore. And it's now getting in the way of me being able to just kind of move through the world in a way that doesn't feel like the comparison feels so, I don't know about you, but it prevents me from like really accessing all the creativity I want, because before I even sit down, I'm like, well, it's not going to be as good as this person's. It's not.
Fuck. Yeah.
Or I posted this comedy reel and it only got X amount of views. So knowing obviously that this is about consistency over time, and also knowing how I combat it, and the times when I feel the least amount of comparison are when I am focused on my own stuff.
Yep.
The days where I
Focus and just like don't look to the sides.
don't look
Just
to the
stay the
sides,
path. Yeah.
stay off of social media. When I wake up, when I get to writing immediately, when I write for a 3 or 4 hour chunk, and I can do that the first thing in the morning, I know that the rest of the day is going to be great, because at least I've put the time in to achieving the things I want to achieve. And also knowing again, like, what comparison really is, and starting to break down, like, it's that I want some of the things that this person has, and I don't know how to get, or I don't feel like I'm able to access that yet. I don't know how to get that yet. And so it's like, okay, so use it as a roadmap. Like, you want to be able to write more jokes. So like how do you reverse engineer that, right? So it's like, sit down and just make a goal to write 2 new jokes a week or a day or whatever.
And there's a healthy element of that. Like, that's not entirely as damaging or detrimental as we allow it to then become. Because then you and I, we're very similar. We then take it to like the nth degree.
Of course.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of being like, oh, here's some like friendly, not competition, but just being like some friendly comparison. Let me reassess. These are the things that I want to work on. If they have similar goals that they're accomplishing, I have similar goals I want to accomplish. Let's just like, kind of reassess and refocus. But instead it's like, I fucking suck and they're amazing.
Yeah.
I'm a failure. Like, that's where I go.
Yeah.
Always.
It's so like, it's also funny because you and I are pretty like high achieving, like type A personalities, where like on paper, I wouldn't look at either of us on paper and go, that's someone who doesn't know how to function throughout the world.
People say that to me often. I get that.
You're
I think
killing it.
Yeah.
You look like you're killing it.
When I open up about certain or a lot of the vulnerabilities that I'm feeling, when I talk about depression, when I talk about my struggles of, my deep insecurities and self-loathing and all of these things, it's so different than what people get on social media. And it's also so different as what people get when I'm navigating the world. I know how to show up and smile and be happy and sunshine and butterflies when on the inside I'm fucking depressed as fuck. I know exactly how to do that. And because I had to do it as a kid. I had to do it as a kid. It was my survival tactic.
It was the same survival tactic. It was, I'm fine, don't ask me questions.
Yeah. And I think that's where the high achieving comes from that as well. Like I talk about that in therapy, where so much of my childhood was the areas where I was not getting care or love from my parents or from my peers. I had to compensate. Yeah. So that's why I was a straight A student. That's why I went into probably theater and dance and arts, because I could be on stage and I could get affirmation from an audience, because I certainly wasn't getting it at home. In fact, I was getting the opposite of it at home. Not entirely, but in different chapters of life, my stepdad was like very verbally abusive to me. So like during that chapter of time, it was like, oh, if I could get accolades from my teachers and my friends and their parents, then like I feel better and I'm much better.
Right.
But it's not. It was a tool that was helpful to me as a kid that is now really holding me back.
Yeah.
Because this comparison spiral that I'm fucking constantly trapped up in, it's always with me on every day, I feel like is really holding me back in other areas. I feel like it's the death of creativity for me.
100%. And it's just like It's the mess on the windshield that just fogs you from. It's if you've done The Artist's Way.
I have. I love The Artist's Way. Yes.
So what I love about what she says, it was The Artist's Way is this 12-week Unlocking Your Creativity workbook by Julia Cameron.
Julia Cameron.
And
A lot of famous artists, actors, creators out there
great.
like swear by it.
It's
as,
great.
As kind of like a great resource and tool.
I feel like I redo it every few years, and it gives me something new each time. But
we should do it.
Done.
I would totally do it with you.
We should do it, and then each week.
That'll be another episode. Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
The morning pages are. It's you write freehand for 3 pages just to and her thing is like it's like windshield wipers for your brain. It just dumps the gunk out so that you can get to the what's beneath it. And that's what I feel like the comparison stuff is for me. It's like it's exhausting to have to wade through it and to clean it off every day. So some days I just don't, and it prohibits me from just moving forward in the right direction for that day. What are the times that you feel it the worst? When does it flare up for you?
This is actually really interesting you're saying this because it comes up the most for me in gay spaces and queer spaces, which is so complicated and really nuanced because I feel exponentially safer in gay queer spaces, but I also feel exponentially threatened and less than, and I'm constantly comparing myself to everybody. So we're saying this with knowing that we are going to Fire Island on Wednesday and Thursday, and we're gonna have a big old gay time on Fire Island, and then I'm spending a week in Provincetown this summer with Judson actually and his husband and some of my other friends, and I love those spaces because I can be myself. I don't have to worry if my shorts are too short or, something like that. Or I don't have to worry about being myself, simply being myself. However, then I don't become myself in those spaces because I'm like, okay, I don't know, I'm a little squishy in the midsection right now. I haven't got to the gym. I don't have enough money. We're staying in a hotel. We're not staying in like a gorgeous house that has 7 bedrooms. And that guy has so much more money than me that, and then, like every homosexual these days is like married with 7 boyfriends. And I'm like, I'm single and can't even get 1 boyfriend. So the fact that like you have a husband and you have 3 other boyfriends and you have a gorgeous house and you have a trust fund, I'm like, what am I doing? So I go into a lot of those spiral moments in these concentrated gay spaces. Wow. And I love being able to come back from those spaces and go straight to therapy and be like, Jared, I feel so fucking triggered by this week. But so that's what's so complicated for me is like, how do I feel so safe in this space and also so completely torn apart, and like it makes me, those spaces generally tend to make me hate myself unless I'm like feeling really hot and really fit, and but then I'm using an external factor for validation because then I'm being like, oh, well, I'm worthy compared to these people now. This is where my worthiness is, which is so problematic for me, and I'm working on it every day.
It is a daily work on, and that's such an interesting like that the space that you feel the most comfortable in is also the space that you feel the most like threatened by. And I wonder if it's just because like the armor that you have to walk around the world with is removed, and so it's like you're just like, oh no, like the sensitive places are exposed now, like I don't get to put up this wall here, or I don't have to put up this wall here, but that also there's no like selective, you can't like selectively armor or disarmor, you know, it's either it's all or nothing. And so it's like that's so fascinating.
Yeah, gay men terrify me. They're overwhelming, and
they terrify me too.
They terrify me. Similarly, because of the queer thing and growing up queer, there's this book called The Velvet Rage. If you ever want to read it, it's just about what does it mean to grow up queer, and then how do we overcompensate in adults, and then how do we learn how to undo the parts of our personality that are rooted in that trauma and feeling othered. And you know what it was? It was as a kid, I felt like I wasn't a part of the club because I was queer, and I wasn't on I wasn't at the cool in the sports team. I wasn't at the popular kids like table. Yeah. Then when I came out, I felt so uniquely and authentically myself, but also I was like one gay kid in a high school of 400. Yeah. So I felt especially unique, and I was so fucking fortunate that my high school embraced me and was really loving and kind. And
how old were you when you came out?
I was 16, so it was 16. Between sophomore and junior year I came out. So I had 2 years in the closet, 2 years out of the closet in high school.
What was because we haven't talked about this really on the
No.
pod at all. What was
Oh my
that
God, do you want my
like?
coming out story?
Yes.
This is my fucking favorite story. I love this story. So I had a really challenging relationship with my stepfather in the latter half of his life. So we butted heads a lot. And I think a lot of my overachieving also came from, he was very verbally abusive for a massive chunk of time. So I feel like a lot of my overachieving was also trying to like push back at him, being like, you're gonna be a dick to me, but I'm gonna accomplish more and try to be more perfect so you love me, is essentially what it was.
Yeah.
But this is one thing that I will give a lot of deep credit to my stepfather. I was home for the weekend. Usually I'm not when I was in high school because I was at choir practice, I was at play practice, I was working at Old Navy, I was working at the bakery, I had like a million fucking jobs. So I was home and all I wanted to do was watch Moulin Rouge for the 37th time. And so it was
Absolutely.
like, I'm sitting on the couch, it's like 11 o'clock in the morning, I'm watching Moulin Rouge. My stepfather came into the living room and he was like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, you should be cleaning your room. You have so many other things you should be doing. Like, go do your artwork, blah, blah, blah. Was like hounding me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm so tired. I'm doing so many things in school right now. Like, just let me fucking watch Nicole Kidman and Ewan McGregor slay it right now. I just want to watch it, okay?
Yeah.
And so we got into this big fight and he was like, go to your fucking room, like clean your room, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, fine, fuck you. So I was like furious and I went into my room and instead of cleaning, I was like, I'm gonna get on the computer and look up gay porn because that's what you do when you're mad and fighting with your parents. So I went onto my favorite gay porn website at the time. Have you heard this story? I don't know if you've heard this story.
Wait. Okay.
The name of the website was called 100%gayporn.com. Like, not 98, not 98, 100%gayporn.com. And it was just like some dude with like his dick and like blinking pink letters that was like 100%. And so, but this is back in the day, .com. This is dial-up. So my stepfather was so mad, he picked up the phone to call my mom, who, that's another fun fact. At this point, my mom worked for an escort agency. My mom was the secretary at an escort agency. If anyone doesn't know this, it was called, the name of the escort agency was called Temporarily Yours. And my mom had a fake name. Her fake name was Tess. So if I ever had to call her on the cell phone and she didn't pick up, I had to call the 1-800 number and she'd be like, Temporarily Yours, this is Tess, how can I help you? And I was like, hey, Mom. Anyway, so sidebar, my stepdad picked up the phone to call Temporarily Yours to bitch and moan that I was not cleaning my room, and he heard the dial-up. So he was like, rage through the roof. He was gonna come busting into the room, and it like all happened in slow motion. Fortunately, I was not doing anything. I was fully clothed, everything was fine. But yet is the key word. He came, he like threw the door open, and there I was sitting, and it was just 100% gay porn blinking. And he switched immediately from rage to deep love and compassion. I was so fucking lucky.
Oh my God.
He immediately was like, okay. Oh, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to bust in like that. And then he walked out of the room and he was and then he shut the door very gently. He was outside the room for like 15 seconds. And then it was like a very gentle knock on the door. And I was like, come in? Of course it's still going, the computer, and then he was like, hey, I just, are you? And I was like, am I what? And he was like, are you gay? And the amount that I wanted to say I'm bisexual, but I couldn't because the screen said 100%.
100%.
He was like, well, it doesn't say 50% gay porn.
100%.
It says 100% gay porn.
Gayporn.com.
So I couldn't even say I'm bisexual, so I was like, I guess so.
Also, you weren't bisexual.
I was absolutely not bisexual.
You were not bisexual.
No, at all.
Kelly.
Definitely not. Kelly. And then he very lovingly, it was perfect. I was so fucking fortunate. And for so many people, they're not fortunate. So I also acknowledge that privilege. He just showered me with love and was like, there's nothing wrong with this. We love you so much. You don't have to feel any shame about this. I'm so happy that we know this now. And your mom will be home in 15 minutes, get ready to tell her. And so then my mom came home and I told her, and they helped me navigate what friends to tell and who to tell. They helped me break up with my girlfriend at the time, who is amazing, sweet Sophia.
Hi,
Sophia.
Hi, Sophia. I'm so sorry.
I know.
I can help you pick out your prom
So,
dress.
yeah, literally, we did go to prom together. So yeah, that was, why were we talking about the coming out story? Just because of shame. Oh,
We just
that's,
said-
oh no.
yeah.
Where I was going to go with
Yeah.
that was a big tangent. Sorry, I'm talking a lot now.
Don't apologize. This is
This is what it's for.
This is what it's for.
The tangent was going to be, I remember when I came out thinking, I feel like I can just be myself now, and this is amazing. And then I felt special. I felt like I didn't have to be any type of gay. I could just be who I was as a sweet 16-year-old boy who was just figuring it out. Yeah. And then when I came to New York, it was like a bat to my face. That was kind of like, oh wait, there's 85 million other homos here now, and you are no longer unique, and now you have to go right back into comparing yourself to everybody. So it felt like I was right back on the soccer field when I was 7, being like, everyone else here is cooler and more talented and better than I am, and I don't fit in. And that's how I felt when I moved to New York, and I still feel that today. Like, half of my like audition anxiety diarrhea that I get when I have to go to auditions is because I'm like, oh, I have to walk into a room of fucking 50 gorgeous, amazingly talented, 75% homosexual men and dance in front of them and sing in front of them. Like, terrifying. And that's what it feels like when I go to Fire Island or when I go to P-Town. Again, spaces that I love. I love musical theater, but it also gives me so much diarrhea because of comparison.
It's so similar. Like,
where does it pop up the most for you? Where is it
like
the most
in comedy spaces? Like where I am happiest in comedy spaces, exactly. And it is also because I love it so much. Because I'm like, what if my best isn't as good as this other person's best? And what does that mean for me? And what does that mean about like how good I am or how worthy I am? And particularly in New York, where it's this concentration of people come here to make it, right?
Literally.
And it's like it's the pinnacle of theater, the pinnacle of comedy, the pinnacle of
finance,
of all of these things, of everything. And so it's like you get tossed into this mix of like, well, I was pretty good where I came from, but I'm
a fucking small fish.
I'm
in the
a
ocean
small
now.
fish now, and that is very jarring. But it comes up for me. You know, honestly though, it comes up for me when I'm not doing the stuff that I know makes me feel good. Right? We talked to Richard, one of our past guests, about joy. Like, how do you find joy? And that joy is whatever makes you feel happy. And when I think about what makes me feel happy on a daily basis, it is every day finding time to journal, have a good night's sleep, eat well, exercise, be creative in some way, shape, or form, have quiet time, perform, like all of these combination of things that make me very happy. And when I start to fall off of that, when I dip back into drinking that makes me feel hungover, or when I fall off of a consistent writing practice, or when I don't exercise for a few days, like it's a very delicate balance of like any one of these things getting pulled makes me sort of slow down and start to look around at what other people are doing and, well, how come they can figure it out and I can't? Like,
oh, I say that to myself all the time.
Yeah. So it's for me the antidote. And even knowing the antidote doesn't mean that I'll do it every day.
Doesn't fix it.
It doesn't fix it, but it's at least knowing it now. And this conversation I had with my therapist last week has been so helpful, even in the last week, of processing like this didn't come from nowhere. Like, so give yourself a little bit of a break of like, this is you're undoing 30 years of conditioning here, and correct. I think that's the thing. You know, one of my friends told me last week, she was like, I think one of the things you need to work on the most is giving yourself grace. You rarely give yourself a break. Yeah. And like you push it so hard all the time.
You're incredibly hard on yourself.
Like, and I think both of us have that of like, and it, I think it works to push us forward in a certain way, but it also is like, it's not really working for me now.
Yeah. Because then you're running on fumes and you're
fully.
Like, oh, this is not.
And you get sick. I was sick for like a whole week, a couple weeks ago. And it's like, I remember just like resting and being so, I told you, I was like, I'm almost happy that I'm sick because I get to just rest.
I know.
I get to rest guilt-free. And it's like, well.
It's like, well, because even if you're staying home resting, you're like, but I should be at the gym. I should be writing something. I should be doing
morning,
this.
My alarm went off at 7. I had shows all weekend. And I was like, I can't get up. And I was like, well, then you're not going to make it to the gym today. And it's like, I had to sit in bed and be like,
ooh,
is it more important for you to go to the gym or for you to listen to your body that is screaming for more sleep?
Yep.
And it's like, go with the rest. Go with the rest. Like, and if I didn't do that, my mental capacity would be totally shot.
Is your comparison, I have to keep this in check a lot because I'm questioning is my comparison framing myself against somebody else about my insecurities, or is it about me or is it about them? I have to kind of check sometimes because
mine is 99.999% about me.
Correct. Same.
It's so rarely about anything about this person. It's just, what are they doing or what do they have that I want? And I think often about like the reason I feel so low is because I see what they have and I go, there's no reason I can't also have that. And yet they have figured out how to get it in a way that I don't know how to get yet. Whether that is, again, for me right now, it's like this like prolificness with writing that it is really hard for me, or just the way that some people are able to just bang out like I wrote a pilot, or I wrote a solo show, or I write music and it got sold, or even just the process of writing it down. I'm just like, I am sitting down every day and it feels like I'm squeezing a rock and nothing is coming out. Like, and I can't figure out how, and I'm attacking it from every angle, and I still, it's that. It's like I'm flooring the car and it's just the wheel is spinning in the mud.
It's just going.
So it's like, that's the frustration I'm in. Is that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's 9 times out of 10, it's about me.
Yeah.
Because we're in this space, we're in this creative space where we have a lot of our peers who are like succeeding exponentially bigger and better than us, which is fucking amazing, and I want it to be that way. I love my friends so deeply.
Might I rephrase, succeeding in ways that we are seeing.
Yes, correct.
Because
which
we're
is
not
also
seeing the
a
whole
part of
picture.
dismantling.
Yeah,
that's why we're doing this
the whole
podcast.
Picture.
Yeah, but even the podcast, this very podcast.
Yeah,
I am loving what we're doing.
Yeah,
and I feel like the way I put it is like I'm losing time. Someone said to me, you love something when you're losing time while doing it. And I feel like when we have these conversations, we're like, oh shit, an hour went by.
Yeah.
Or even when I'm editing, and I'm a terrible editor, but I'm like kind of like, but I feel really excited about this. I love listening to these conversations. Like, I'm loving it, and I love the feedback that we're getting. I love that our friends are listening and it feels special. But then there's that other part of me that's like, well, if their podcast is more successful, or like, oh, they're a celebrity starting a podcast and they already have a built-in audience of 2 million people, they're going to monetize immediately. And I'm trying to be like, okay, how, like, this is a passion project for us that we're hemorrhaging money on, but like, I still fucking love it, so it's fine. So I'm like, why can't I just let it be this and let it just be a beautiful, fun passion project? And I have to keep checking myself, because I'm like, we should have more followers, more people should be listening, we should have more downloads, I don't know. And like, why did they, how did they figure it out? How did they get so many more people on board, or blah, blah, blah. It's, the comparison is so dangerous, because it is the thief of joy.
Right.
Because the thing that I'm loving about this is now getting like stripped away by comparing myself to everyone else's podcast, because everyone in the world has a podcast right now. It's so oversaturated. And everyone should have a podcast, because we all have unique voices.
Right.
But
and that's I think that's a great place to pause our episode here.
Yeah.
Put a little button.
I mean, comparison's going to come up on it.
We're going to keep, this is such a thing that we need to keep talking about. And I think one of our challenges that both of you and I can kind of step up to is like slowing down. First of all, stop needing the results right now, and figuring out the spaces where it flares up the most, and start noticing where it also dissipates.
Absolutely.
And get into those spaces more, and less focus on like, this Fire Island will be interesting.
It will be interesting.
I'm very excited.
One note I want to leave on, this is something that, I don't even remember who said this to me. A friend of mine said it to me years ago when I was in the midst of auditioning, like deeply auditioning, and being like, I want a Broadway show, and everyone else has one and I don't have one. And I think about it all the time now, and it really does help. It's a tiny antidote to the comparison monster, which is someone else's success is not your failure.
Oh yeah.
And I have to check myself on that so much, because
all the time.
I'm thrilled for everyone else that is succeeding or seemingly succeeding. But just because they're succeeding, it doesn't mean that I have failed.
Yeah. And don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle or end.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A celebrity starting a podcast with 2 million followers, that's they're in a
It's a
different
completely different circumstance.
circumstance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's muddy.
That's muddy, and that'll continue to be muddy. And I love you so much.
I love you, friend.
Okay.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Thanks.
We'll have more of these little mini Drew and Alex episodes
Yeah.
coming
Mini
at ya.
muddy
Mini
messages.
muds. Mini
muds.
muds.
All right.
Love you so much.
Bye, y'all. Thanks.
Bye.